Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Get Your Head Out of Your Assay. My name is Zach Gerard-Levin, founder and CEO of Peapod Bio. And in this series, we talk to other assay experts about the nuances of developing robust assays and some of the factors that we need to consider that go beyond the well and the protocol. Today, I'm joined by Joe Franklin. Joe is the founder of Method Discovery Services. He is an experienced drug hunter, chemist by training, and really all aspects of the drug discovery process. Joe is also a particular expert in DNA-encoded libraries, and that's going to be the topic of today's discussion. So, Joe, first of all, thank you for joining. And before we get started, maybe just give a very brief introduction to what is a DNA-encoded library screen.
Sure, Zach. Yes. The DNA encoded library screen is much like the other screening modalities, high throughput screening, ASMS, fragment screening. What makes DNA encoded libraries particularly unique is that the molecules are on the end of a piece of DNA that can be read in a DNA sequencer. So the molecules are made by split and pool combinatorial synthesis. And then at the end, each individual molecule made has its own DNA barcode. So like when you go to a grocery store, you scan strawberries, it tells you a quart of strawberries equals 4.99. Well, in this case, the DNA sequencer reads the sequence and it tells you what the structure of the molecule is. And what's really great about this is it allows us to screen billions of compounds in a single well. So if you want to do 10 different conditions against your target, you just need 10 wells and you can screen all billion of those compounds in 10 individual wells, which makes it very cost effective.
That is an incredible scale, billions of compounds in a single well, in a single screen. How do you even start to analyze that data? And what are you looking for to give you that confidence in moving a certain series forward? Are there any red flags or maybe green flags or something that helps you with that decision process?
Sure, yeah, definitely. And let me first state the rules of good screening apply to Dell. So, it doesn't matter what mode of screening you choose, you need to set up a good screen because if you don't set up a good screen, you won't get good data. So you need to have good high quality protein. You need to know about your target. You need to know the profiles that you want to see from the molecules, right? Because there's many different profiles that you can go after. You need to make sure you set that screen up well. Once you've done that, you're right, you produce lots and lots of data. Okay, and so how do you analyze that data? The first thing I'll say is do replicates, right? So a good screen involves replicates. The very first thing I will look at from these large conditions is how do the replicates perform? Okay. If the replicates perform to a high degree of consistency, I'll move forward. If they don't, I got to think about things. Do I want to repeat it? What went wrong, right? Um, so replicates work well. I move forward. The next thing I'm going to do is just simple XY plots. And so let's say I've done multiple conditions, which is a strength of Dell. I'm going to do simple XY plots that allow me to look at these conditions independently. And so the simplest condition would be target of interest versus my no target control. And basically in that condition, I'm looking, does the profile of my molecules show up against the target only, or am I starting to see it against the background, right? I might also do things like target of interest, wild type, and mutant, and I want to see selectivity one versus the other. Or maybe I'm going to introduce a ligand, so competition of the target with and without the ligand. I can plot all of these on XY plots and look to see, am I getting the engagement with my target that I set out to with this screen? And if the answer is yes, I start highlighting molecules that are interesting to the program. Step I do after that is I go to an individual library basis to determine is SAR present. And so within Dell, if you have billions of compounds, that's typically tens to hundreds of libraries that make up those billions, and they can all be pulled together through the magic of DNA sequencing. So I can do them in one well, not many wells. And I want to look to see from the compounds I pulled out of the XY plots is interesting. Now on the individual library basis, am I seeing SAR within those features? Because that's very common with Dell where you'll see SAR. I will also look across libraries that may represent fragments in different libraries and see, am I seeing that fragment which appears to contribute to the binding? Am I seeing that in multiple libraries? So do my replicates perform well? Do I see the profiles I want in XY plots, which will allow me to look at hundreds of thousands to millions of data points? And then what's the SAR I see from an individual library basis? Those are the three main things I'll do. And depending on different projects, I might add, but I always do those three. Red flags would be the replicates don't look good. The signal to noise is horrible, so the background is making it really challenging to call a true hit from background. Or do I not see the profile, right? Like if I set my screen up and this is the type of profile I want to see my molecules interacting, and I don't see that, do I need to rethink the screen? Do I need to apply those resources to a screen that did exhibit that profile and sort of say stop on this target? Those are sort of three big red flags to me.
And what I like about thinking about the analysis first is it helps you design the screen in a way that you can make those decisions. So how many replicates do I need? Do I have the right background conditions? Do I want to do a competition or a mutant versus wild type? So thinking about the end before you even start the beginning is very helpful. Let me ask you one last question. There's a lot of talk of using artificial intelligence and machine learning with something like 1 billion compounds. How are those tools being utilized today to analyze or help establish DNA-encoded library screens?
Sure. Now there's a ton of work being done on this. I mean, I think every day we log into our LinkedIn and we see different reports and new papers coming out and all that. I think specifically to the work that I've done and to the Dell field, um, there's a lot of work being done on helping pick targets. So whether it's, first in class versus best in class, there's a lot of work with ML being used on picking targets, specifically with data analysis. We've used ML to really help with that SAR part. And so Dells aren't, in HTS, you buy a purified compound, it goes in, and over time, you actually make sure that that compound is still pure, right? Like, and you keep making fresh batches of your HTS library. With Dell, it's a combinatorial synthesis, and so you don't produce 100% of the fully encoded molecule. You're going to produce deletion products and byproducts. And so machine learning can really help you understand the profile of that synthetic effort and help you make good SAR driven choices. And so does it appear that, it's always only two pieces of a three-piece molecule that are showing up and it's showing up across different libraries? Well, that probably means the full thing was never made and this smaller piece is what's being selected. And ML is really great at help teasing those details out. It's also great when you look at a structure on a screen. Two structures can look very different because they're in two-dimensional. The best chemists in the world to say, no, they're very, very different. But the way they're represented in three-dimensional space, they can actually take on the same shape and interact with the target. Even though they look very different, their shape is the same and they're interacting with the target the same. ML is really good at help pulling out those types of SAR relationships that a human eye just might not be able to do. And also finding some of the finer patterns, like the big things that are obvious jump out to human eyes, but ML is really great at finding some of those more subtle patterns. So the way we've really used ML with our Dell screening platforms is helping us understand that SAR and then moving molecules forward from there. Based on these molecules, these would be the next ones you should make because they weren't in that screen or, they have a certain shape. And so therefore you should go make them.
Excellent. Thanks, Joe, for sharing your insight, your expertise today. There's a lot of things that people need to think about, again, that are even outside of that well. So that's a perfect topic for making sure we keep our heads out of our assays. Thank you very much, Joe.
Thank you.